Hey everybody, I know I said we would start off with the closing of the curtain on the Beyond Visual Line of Sight ARC, but hey, some other things are going on, important things, so let's talk about them and get them out of the way, and then we'll get to the other stuff. Like Captain Billy Nolan, who just started at the FAA as the head of safety back in January, has been named the acting administrator of the FAA. He'll replace Administrator Dixon, who will retire at the end of March. And he's got a fantastic resume. He's got very similar qualities to current Administrator Dixon. He's worked for an airline, but he also worked for the Air Transport Association, which is now Airlines for America. So he has lots of stakeholders that he can reach out to. So between, I really like Deputy Administrator Mims' qualifications as far as the organization and understanding the political winds and things like that. So as a team, boy, this will be great. And but it is interesting that it's the first time that I can recall that the deputy hasn't stepped into the role. And what about the people back in the AVS, the safety organization? I mean, they're the ones that are in charge of certification and flight standards, and sort of set the rules. They're still working on the Boeing 777. That'll be a few years from, a couple of years from now. They have new entrants that they're dealing with that just got their certification parameters set. And they're still implementing the legislation, the certification legislation that due to the fallout of the Boeing Max, there's a lot going on there. And so the leader was there for 90 days. Now he's out. It's in great hands, though. Chris Rocheleau was acting for at least 6 months last year when they were on the search for when they selected Captain Nolan. So they'll be in great hands, and the whole team will do great, and we need them to do great. So they need our support. This is, it's interesting times. It's interesting to watch, but we also need them because I like to fly and I like to be safe. Big shout out to Dan Hickok. His is the only organization that is reaching out and actually communicating, not just talking at industry, but communicating with industry. His whole team, he and his whole team, they held a surveillance workshop last week, and not only did they communicate what they know is going on, but they also asked questions and told industry where they wanted information and help. Okay, there's places that they don't want help. Okay, so put those in file 13, figure out what they were asking for, and we all have the opportunity to help there. And that kind of communication has become kind of routine for his organization. And there was even a question right away, will other organizations do that? And the answer was, they don't know. They're doing their thing. And congrats to them. Thank you so much, because they're doing the right thing. They're communicating, and now industry can help. And if industry doesn't help, it's not from them not communicating. That's not the point. So we have a great opportunity here, and I appreciate it. He's doing a great job. Beyond Visual Line of Sight, here we are. Okay, the curtain has closed. Beyond Visual Line of Sight for drones is the holy grail. It opens up all the business models and anybody can think of to get it done, and none of them open up without it. And it's been really hard to get, and the way that the FAA works, if you get one waiver to something, you got one waiver. They've done a great job on some easy things like flights over people where they have known parameters that you can work with. Beyond Visual Line of Sight just says, well, who knows what's over that hill? So a much more complex situation. And what the FAA did is they started an acquisition rulemaking committee, advisory rulemaking committee, which a whole bunch of stakeholders, including people that represent community interests as well as drone interests, so it's not just a one-sided conversation, and they collectively provide recommendations for the FAA to make rules. And in this case, it's what kind of rule do you need to be able to fly beyond visual line of sight? So they've been at this for nearly 6 months. It's a lot of work if anybody's ever thinking about they want to do something like that. So you better be prepared to work. You don't just throw stuff out and walk away. It isn't that kind of work. It's real work, pen to paper kind of stuff. And now it's in the hands of the FAA, who will develop a rule probably by November, and then that rule will be out for public comment. and we'll set the stage for, hopefully, unlocking how we will fly beyond visual line of sight. So, high expectations. So, what did they recommend? Well, the first thing is kind of, I'll say, standardize the acceptable level of risk. So today, if one person asks and another person asks, you're likely to get two different answers, or because it's not standardized. There isn't a framework to operate from. Each element is looked at independently. So their issue is to get clarity and consistency of the rules for any given application, and that way that the community will know how to address that every single time. Seems like a reasonable rule. I'm not sure they needed an ARC for that, but hey, that's number one. Next one's change the right-of-way rules. This one's super complicated, but to me it boils down to equipage. Look, if you're in drone space, like below 400 feet, and you want to cooperate down there as a traditional or semi-traditional or another drone, then okay, then that's how we'll cooperate under a set of rules. But if you're not cooperating, if you're not broadcasting out your location and what your intent is, no, you're the one that has to stay out of the way of everybody else. That kind of makes sense. We'll see where the FAA goes with that. It could have some impact on current, the way that airspace is handled and the way that rules are already considered. But anyway, it's an interesting one, and it's kind of complicated, but I think that it should provide for a real solid framework about how to make sure that people are equipped, or they're the ones that stay out of the way. Training. Hey, every ARC comes up with some kind of training. Training is good. In this case, training for beyond visual line of sight does have some idiosyncrasies, most likely, so that's a good thing. So, but they also added something neat, which is instead of one operator, one drone, one operator, lots of drone training is part of the package. Okay, we'll see what the FAA does with it. Right now, it's kind of a no-no. They do it in the military, but I don't know if they're going to let civilians do it, and then how many. All those things kind of question. Don't know what the details of that are, but hey, anything that provides more training can unlock this. Good thing. And then a rule that would allow access for larger aircraft. Now a small is considered anything less than 55 pounds, and it was arbitrary at the time because a long time ago, they either made really small ones, micro drones, or they made really big ones like Global Hawk and Predator and Reaper. And then nobody made something in between. Well, now there's stuff in between, and there's all kinds of different materials and different capabilities. So, with technology, this is all different. And so there's now like an index, it's not mass, but sort of an index of energy that could be activated by a drone. And, that's what would cause injury or harm to another aircraft or to someone on the ground. So it seems reasonable that there's just a different way to do that calculation, and that would determine what size limits there are. So hey, great job by the team, and they went even. I understand that they provided comments beyond their scope, but that's kind of normal. But now the curtain's closed. Now they hand it off to the FAA. Now we'll get a rule. We're still probably at least 18 months away, but it's a great start. Great start. Ever play that movie? Ever play that game? Angry Birds. It's pretty funny. There's a couple commercials about it. But in 2019, there were 17,000 reported bird strikes in the U.S. alone. Thousands more around the world, and 97% of all those bird strikes occur less than 3,000 feet. Normal, where airplanes are taking off and landing at an airport. And wildlife teams at airport do all kinds of things, from firing off cannons to lasers to dogs to other birds of prey, noisemakers, all kinds of things to make sure that they keep these birds out of the way of traditional aircraft. So obviously a bird strike can be catastrophic. We saw the miracle on the Hudson where Captain Sullenberger, actually Ambassador Sullenberger, landed his Airbus in the water, saved everybody. Fantastic. And I'd like to point out that that was a Canadian, a flock of Canadian geese, and that'll be important here in a minute. So it's been for a long time. Regulators are working to make sure that the impact of bird strikes is mitigated, so they do testing. What that does, in order to do those tests, you need to fly birds into an airplane that's moving, or enter the chicken cannon. Yes, a chicken cannon. And leading the way of that testing is none other than the owners of the geese, the Canadian geese, the Canadians. Yes, the Aerospace Research Center of the National Research Council of Canada, and no, I don't think they own the geese, are leading the effort on bird strikes. So what they built is a 10-inch cannon that fires chicken carcasses with compressed air into an airplane to determine what damage is done, all those kinds of things, and leading edge, into the engine, nose cone, windshield, trying to replicate the conditions of landing and climb out of aircraft. But then they took that 10-inch cannon, turned it up to 11, and fired a chicken at 1,000 miles an hour, making them the home of the world's fastest chickens. And that should go up on somebody's wall. That is awesome. So, and now they have a complete arsenal of chicken weapons, housing the largest gun in the world. The largest gun in the world, shooting a 17.25-inch bore super cannon for chickens. And now they're cranking that thing up to 11, again, adapting those chicken guns to super cannon for drones. Yes, they're going to fire drones at incredible speeds to determine the potential impact to airplanes and in the event of a collision. And all I can tell you is this is super important stuff, but I really hope they film it and put it on YouTube. So Blue Origin has a rescheduled launch that actually will take off tomorrow on another shot to space for 4 minutes and then come back down. The greatest carnival ride ever. But the king of Staten Island, Saturday Night Live star Pete Davidson, was scheduled to be on the first flight, which got rescheduled, and he can't make tomorrow's flight. But I don't know, I didn't pay attention on who got replacement. But what I did do is when I heard that, I'm like, well, who else is flying? We know that Captain James T. Kirk took a ride, and that was cool. So who else is going? Well, lo and behold, Dr. George Nield, colleague and friend, the former assistant administrator of commercial space transportation at the FAA, is going for a ride tomorrow. I reached out to George. He is super excited, and I am super excited for George. It is cool. So I'll actually know somebody that's going up for the ride and coming back. Anyway, something to watch. It takes place tomorrow, and I hope it goes. Fingers crossed, and I hope it is a safe flight, and I hope we can hear cool things from George when he gets back. All right, smash that like button. Hit subscribe if you like, and if you want to be notified of the next one, there's a bell. You can click that, and then that dings when I launch another one. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next time. Safety and regulation.